Good morning to all of you, to Raul, to our sign language interpreter, and to everyone tuned in to this briefing. I want to start today's briefing, August 23rd, by congratulating all Cuban women on the 60th anniversary of the founding of the Federation of Cuban Women. Cuban women have been outstanding actors throughout our history, playing an important role in every revolution that has taken place in our country. In our health sector, Cuban women represent 60% and sometimes more of staff and personnel. We recognize the stories and realities of Cuban women throughout the island's history, and especially in this most recent period, in the battle against COVID-19, during which Cuban women have continuously worked every day, researching, for example, to develop new medicines and vaccines to treat patients. They have been isolated for over a month, between working in cluster zones and attending to patients, then having to undergo the 14-day mandatory quarantine period, separated from their families. I genuinely believe that on a day like today, the 60th anniversary of the creation of the Federation of Cuban Women, that it is only right we congratulate them. And not just me, but all of us, their colleagues who work by their side and support them day in, day out, and recognize the sacrifice Cuban women make for our country and our revolution. Once again, congratulations. Unfortunately, today's figures are not favorable. We start today's press conference by reporting the death of 2 patients yesterday. We offer our condolences to friends and family of the deceased. One of the patients was a 69-year-old woman from Centro Habana, who was admitted to hospital 11 days ago, 10 of which was spent in intensive care. She was reported as serious on being admitted. The patient also suffered from a series of pre-existing illnesses. Unfortunately, and despite treatments and all Cuba's scientific resources, the patient, who until yesterday had been reported as serious and had been receiving treatment in the intensive care unit for the last 10 days, suffered cardiac arrest, from which it was not possible to resuscitate her, resulting in her death. We send our condolences to her family and friends. Another patient also died yesterday, a 71-year-old woman from Centro Habana, who had been in intensive care for 5 days. She was also reported as serious and suffered from pre-existing medical conditions. Like the other patient, this lady also received constant care and treatment, as established by our treatment and attention protocols and plans, which have enabled us to successfully heal a significant number of serious and critical patients in our country. However, this patient also suffered cardiac arrest yesterday, from which, and despite the procedures applied, it was not possible to revive her. Once again, I reiterate our condolences to her friends and family, and to the Cuban people, who we know regret such events. Today, 1,235 people are hospitalized in Cuba. 55 are under observation. There are 657 suspected cases and 523 confirmed active cases. This is a high number of active hospitalized cases, which are directly linked to the high number of confirmed cases that have been reported over recent days and weeks. Yesterday, 4,867 samples were processed in our various molecular biology laboratories in order to detect COVID-19. 1,685 were processed at the Pedro Curi Tropical Medicine Institute, 812 in Villa Clara's Hygiene, Epidemiology and Microbiology Center, 544 in Havana's, 287 in Santiago de Cuba's, 423 in the Hermanos Almajedas Hospital Laboratory, 376 in the Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology Center Lab, 246 in the Naval Hospital, 229 in the Civil Defense Laboratories, 123 in the Molecular Immunology Center, 78 in the Manuel Fajardo Hospital Lab, and 64 in the Fructuoso Rodriguez Hospital. Of the 4,867 samples processed, 65 tested positive for SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19. That's 65 people with the virus. This brings the total number of samples processed in the entire country since the pandemic began to 361,092, of which 3,682, or 1.02%, have tested positive for the virus. Of the 65 positive cases diagnosed yesterday, 63 are Cubans and 2 are foreign residents in Cuba, meaning that these 2 cases are not imported. Of the 63 Cubans who tested positive for the virus yesterday, 59 are confirmed case contacts. 90.7% of all cases diagnosed yesterday, therefore, had contact with someone who had previously tested positive for the virus. Notice the figures linked to this risk group, which continues to be the highest. This means that confirmed case contacts account for 83.6% of all diagnosed cases since the start of the pandemic. Of the 65 cases diagnosed yesterday, the source of infection linked to 5 is yet to be determined, although work continues in order to do so. This brings the total number of cases where it has not been possible to determine the source of infection in Cuba to 258. Although, as I stated yesterday, only 23 remain open and active. The majority, 12, from Havana, then 9 from Artemisa, and 1 from Matanzas. Meanwhile, one of the 65 cases diagnosed yesterday contracted the virus abroad. This is an imported case, a Cuban who recently returned to the island. He was isolated on arrival and tested for the virus, which came back positive. he has been in hospital since he arrived. As I always mention, samples from all of the country's provinces were tested. The most, as is to be expected, from Havana, given its complex epidemiological situation, with 3,497. 332 were processed from Artemisa, 84 from Pinar del Rio, 95 from Mayabeque, 199 from Matanzas, 105 from Cienfuegos, 222 from Villa Clara, and 141 from Santiago de Cuba, and so on and so forth from all of the country's provinces, in order to detect COVID-19, even in people with no symptoms, but with certain risk factors. Of the 65 diagnosed cases yesterday, 38 are male, for 50.2% of all cases. Meanwhile, 27 are female, representing 49.8% of all diagnosed cases on the island. As you can see, the rate remains practically the same between both sexes. By age group, 22 positive cases yesterday are between 20 and 39 years of age. 21 are between 40 and 59, 20 are over the age of 60, and 2 are under the age of 20. 2 children under 1. Of the 65 positive cases yesterday, 57 belong to Havana, 3 to Artemisa, 3 to Pinar del Rio, and 2 to Matanzas. The 2 cases from Matanzas belong to the municipalities of Cárdenas, where the source of infection is being investigated, and Jaguay Grande, where the source of infection has been determined. The 3 cases from Artemisa belong to the municipalities of Artemisa, San Cristobal, and Caimito, with 1 case each, all of which are confirmed case contacts. Of the 3 cases from Pinar del Rio, 1 belongs to the municipality of La Palma and is linked to an episode of local transmission, as well as being a confirmed case contact. Another belongs to Minas and is also linked to another episode being managed in the locality. The final case is imported, which means that it does not count toward the province's overall confirmed case rate. Regarding Havana, of the 57 cases belonging to the province, 22 are from Arroyo Naranjo, 11 are from Marianao, 4 from La Lisa, 5 from Boyeros, 3 each from Playa, 10 de Octubre, Plaza, and Habana del Este, 2 from San Miguel and La Habana Vieja, and 1 from Cerro. To summarize, of the 3,682 people who have been diagnosed with the virus thus far in Cuba, 523, or 14.2%, are active hospitalized cases, a high number as you can see. 513, or 96.1%, are clinically stable. Cuba has registered 91 COVID-19 related fatalities since the start of the pandemic, 2 of which occurred yesterday. This means that the island has a mortality rate of 2.44%, placing it 21st in the Americas and 111th in the world. For the Cuban people and the work being done by the government and our scientists, the country's mortality rate is very high. As I always mention, 2 patients were previously evacuated at the start of the pandemic. Yesterday, 38 people were discharged from hospital, a negative figure when compared with the number of confirmed cases yesterday. Nonetheless, this means that to date, 3,044 people, or 82.7% of all confirmed cases in Cuba, have recovered from the virus. Another negative indicator: 3 patients continue to be in a critical state in our intensive care units, with 17 reported as serious, for a total of 20 patients being treated in intensive care, of whom 3 are critical and 17 are serious. This after 5 new patients were reported as serious yesterday. I repeat, this is the data we have on the behavior of the pandemic in Cuba. As you can see, the situation is not favorable. We must therefore continue to work hard to reverse this situation, fundamentally in Havana and the west of the country. Now we are going to turn our attention to the world. As of yesterday, COVID-19 continues to be present in the same 185 countries. Yesterday, 271,754 people were diagnosed with the virus, for almost 23 million confirmed cases worldwide. We're talking about 22,977,399 since the start of the pandemic. Yesterday, 6,217 people died of the virus, for a total of 800,321 COVID-19 related deaths and a mortality rate of 3.48%. The region of the Americas, epicenter of the pandemic for several weeks now, accounts for 53.64% of all COVID-19 cases worldwide. The region reported 131,842 new cases yesterday, for a total of 12,326,095 confirmed cases. A high number of deaths were also reported in the region yesterday, 3,937, bringing the COVID-19 death toll in the Americas to 439,405, and a mortality rate of 3.56%. Just like yesterday, the United States continues to top the list of countries with the highest number of COVID-19 cases, with 5,623,727 and over 1,000 deaths yesterday, 1,051, for a total 175,406 COVID-19 fatalities. Brazil follows with 3,532,1 330 confirmed cases, and over 1,000 fatalities reported yesterday, 1,054, for a total of 113,358 COVID-19 related deaths. Then comes India with over 2 million cases, almost 3 million in fact, 2,975,701 confirmed cases, and 945 fatalities yesterday. From our region, Mexico is the other country with a high number of cases, 549,732, as well as COVID-19 related deaths yesterday, with 504. This is the information that we have on the behavior of the pandemic in Cuba and the world.